Welcome. We're so excited. I did not expect this many people. I just want to say a lot of the things we're going to hear today are geared towards the US. And so if you have any other information or would like some, we can try to work with you if you want to contact us afterwards. But that's just what we have today. And I also wanted to mention, if, we're doing a lot of legislative work and talking about things like that here, there are other things like Craigslist flagging or getting a group together to put reviews on Yelp and Google and things like that. So if you're more, wanting to do behind the scenes and smaller things like that, there are a lot of other things you can do instead. So that's just a couple of things I thought of, but feel free to share more. Today, as I'm sure you saw, we have Amit D from Strategic Action for Animals. He's one of the co-founders, and we also will hear from Karen Windsor, the executive director of Foster Parrots. So they'll be speaking first, and then we'll have a question and answer session after that. So I won't take up any more time. We'll start with Amit D, and he, as I said, is one of the co-founders of Strategic Action for Animals.
Yeah, my name is Amit Deleja, and yeah, I mean, it sounds fancy, co-founder of Strategic Action for Animals, but we're really just like a couple of people doing grassroots organization around kind of systematic changes and more strategic changes. And one of the areas that we kind of focus on is like legislative changes. So, this little brief presentation, I'll probably just talk about kind of what are the avenues that individual people can kind of try to make changes, in this case, for parrots, to make obviously a world a better place for animals, basically. So I'm going to go to the next slide. If I can click on it. Okay. Oops. Went to the previous slide. Okay. Like somebody mentioned before, I think there's multiple avenues that people can kind of go towards to make changes. It doesn't have to be policy and legal approaches. Obviously, you can do stuff like public outreach, talk to people, educate people about kind of the cruelty of, in this case, cruelty of buying animals like parrots, and kind of and talk to people about that. You can also do kind of, I've seen a lot of industry pressures on particular pet stores, like particular chains, especially the bigger chains like Petco, PetSmart. And I haven't seen anything with parrots, but I've seen with other animals that they sell. So you can sometimes hook into those type of pressure campaigns where they dedicate their time to kind of abandoning the sale of a particular type of animal usually. The focus of this conversation is going to be about policy and legal approaches that individuals like us, who are kind of grassroots organizations, can make changes without big funding and big kind of budgets, basically. So I think that's what we're going to talk about. Go to the next slide. Yeah. So I think there's like two approaches really to maybe making legislative changes, really. And this is particularly obviously talking about United States, and particularly I live in San Diego, which is part of California. So a lot of this is kind of be geared towards that. The first one is kind of trying to make local changes, for example, at the city level, to get a law passed to, for example, ban the sale of parrots at retail stores. Like that could be one approach. And I think there's really three kind of aspects to doing this. One is like, you should definitely research the issue. I know all of you probably know about kind of the parrot and the pet retail sales industry and kind of the mills that create these animals, basically. So that would be kind of understanding how these animals are kind of sold to pet stores, and maybe understanding all about the industry, have all the facts down. The other thing when you're researching the issue is you should look at state level and probably city level ordinances that have passed in the country. And this is pretty easy to do. Obviously, you can use Google, but having kind of information about what has passed in the country, and what's passed in your city or in adjoining cities can definitely make it easier for council members or politicians to pass something in their city. They're going to be more apt to pass something if something, they don't want to usually want to be like the first person passing it, an ordinance. And it's easier. And when something is passed, you can actually look at the ordinance, see what it looks like, and you can actually give that ordinance to your city council member and say, this is what this city passed. So for example, for Parrots, Washington, D.C., Cambridge, Massachusetts, Arlington, Massachusetts have all passed the banning of sale of all animals, including birds and parrots, just recently within the last, I guess, 5 or 6 years, from retail stores like Petco. They can only, these particular cities, they can only sell pets if they come from rescues, as opposed to if they are bred or getting them from puppy mills or mills in this case, basically. And two additional cities in Michigan have kind of banned the sale of birds specifically. So you can kind of look at these kind of different cities and see what they've passed and try to draft up something on your own and have this information ready when you talk to the city council members. And recently, I just saw when I was kind of researching for this presentation was Rhode Island is trying to pass something at the state level for birds, basically, and specifically for parrots. So they're kind of drafting up the legislation as we speak. So it seems like there's a lot of interest and a lot of things that you can kind of go off on, which would make it easier to pass something at your local city level. The other thing I think you should do is when you're researching is to figure out what the supporters and detractors of this issue is. Obviously, the detractors are going to be probably the pet stores that are selling these animals. But the other thing you can kind of look at is like maybe there's other, besides the animal cruelty or cruelty to birds, in this case, there could be other benefits to the city. For example, when we try to do like a retail sale ban of all pets, sometimes there's financial implications for the city, because if there's less animals to be provided, shelter care and things like that, there's probably less budget for the city to kind of fund some of these shelters. So there may be other benefits besides just the ones we can think of with regards to just animal cruelty. So the first part is to just research the issue, make sure you know everything about it. And then the next thing I would do is try to create a little fact sheet that you can kind of send to people, especially the politicians. And I have an example, if you can see this. So for example, World Animal Protection has, they do a lot of work around this area. So they have a little flag sheet with, obviously this is specific to birds, but you can make it very specific to parrots if you want. It kind of describes kind of what the issue is, what the problems are, and kind of a little bit more information about the precedent, which I was talking about, which cities have passed this legislation, and kind of a little bit more information that you can actually just send to people when you're ready to do that. And I think once you create that fact sheet with all this information, then you can start reaching out to city council members because they're going to be the ones that are going to be responsible for probably taking this issue and kind of creating a law. And I would try to reach out to city council members that may be more sympathetic to your cause. So you can obviously do a Google search and figure out which city council members maybe have pets themselves, which maybe they have birds, and try to kind of reach out, and maybe they have a history of helping animals, and try to reach out and try to target city council members that can help you, basically, because you'll need one of these city council members to kind of draft up the ordinance for you. But when you go into the meeting, you can first of all email them the fact sheet, but you should just have the full issue, and you can have a sample ordinance for them that maybe other cities have passed, and kind of draft up your own and kind of make it super easy for them to, you should have all the questions like who would be against it, who would be, and make it super easy for them to kind of take this and run with it, basically. So that's how you approach maybe kind of the city council from a lobbying perspective. And sometimes what happens is this doesn't work. Maybe the city council members are super busy. Maybe there's no interest. Maybe you live in a city that is not friendly to animals. And one thing you should know is, like, for example, I live in San Diego City, which is huge. There's like probably 1 million registered voters in San Diego City, but there's smaller cities, which might be more amenable to your issues. So you should also look out for cities that are maybe close to you. We have cities outside of San Diego which have smaller population, and those are easier to first target, and maybe you can move to the bigger cities after. So you can also look out for cities that are not that may be close to you that you can maybe target, get something passed, and then create that momentum to pass it at a bigger level, basically. Yeah, so the second part so if you don't get any success at maybe lobbying the city council members at your local city level, there is something you can do which can bypass city council members, which are ballot initiatives. And recently in animal rights, this has become a little bit more popular, especially to push kind of I would guess in today's standard, more extreme cases where politicians won't pick it up. So basically, this is a way to, and not all states and cities have this measure, but in California, we're lucky enough, and these cities near where I live have this measure. So it's really a way to kind of allow citizens to propose and vote on new laws and bypassing the politicians directly. So what you usually means is that you would have to kind of get enough signatures, propose a law, register, get enough signatures from registered voters in that city. And then kind of once you have that, then it'll kind of go to the public to kind of vote on those issues. And I've kind of highlighted like a couple points of what are the major points, basically. And I have a little sheet that I can share with you guys after the meeting that you guys can do. It's specifically for California on all the steps needed to take to pass kind of to do a city local ordinance in a city in California, and has links to everything. But the major steps is really you just have to draft a law that you're kind of wanting to get passed. And in this case, if you, for example, wanted to ban the retail sale of parrots, it's relatively simple because there's already stuff that exists like this, and like as I mentioned in other cities. So you can see what's at your state level, what's at your city level, and draft up. Um, the reason I'm familiar with this is that we did a retail sale ban of all animals, all pets, basically, in a city that has actually just 3,600 registered voters. So you really needed about 3,200 registered voters, and you needed about 320 signatures to get it on the ballot. And they already had a law for dogs, cats, and rabbits. So it was super easy to take that law and just cross out dogs, cats, and rabbits and change it to pretty much all animals that can be not sold at retail stores unless they come from a rescue, because they face kind of the same issues. So once you draft it up, send it to the city attorney, they'll give you something back. You publish it in the paper, and then you're ready to go and start collecting signatures. What I really like about this is because it blends the outreach part with kind of the legislative part. So when you're getting signatures, you can start explaining to people about what basically what the issue is, and kind of do outreach at the same time as while you're collecting signatures, because a lot of people don't know what happens to these animals and where they come from in these pet stores. Yeah, so just get enough signatures, then you get it verified, and then for us, it usually goes to city council, and then they either vote on it, or if they don't approve it, then it goes to the voters in the next election to vote on it, basically. And I have a little, and I can share obviously these links with you guys. It has kind of the steps in California, and specifically in a local city in San Diego, with examples of like all the steps you need to do to kind of get that done, basically. And it has all the mistakes I made, basically, because I didn't realize that you had to be a registered voter in the city to do this. So we went ahead and did it. We got all the signatures, got everything verified. At the last minute, they stopped it because I wasn't a registered voter. So you you won't have the same mistake. But luckily, we have the mayor in that city supporting it, and one of the council members, so we're hoping that it will pass. But yeah, I'll send you guys these links if you, and that's kind of my presentation. But basically, this is a cool way of trying to make local changes, and you don't need a lot of people, especially in smaller cities. You can do it with a group of, 5, a couple of people, basically. So yeah, that's my presentation.
Great. That was wonderful. And some people are asking if we're going to share, everything you just showed. And yes, if that's okay with you, I mean, we're going to get that and, either post it or have it linked somewhere for everyone to be able to look at. And are just going to go right into Karen Windsor, the Executive Director of Foster Parrots, and then we'll have questions after that. So, Karen.
Hi. Oh, my meet was so well organized and had a presentation, and I'm kind of just coming off the hip here. And, most of my legislation experience came from 20 years ago with a failed attempt to initiate legislation in the state of Massachusetts to ban the sale of unweaned baby birds in retail situations. It seemed like a no-brainer. But legislation's not easy. And, so anyways, so starting, Amit did mention going out and locating model legislation. You don't have to write everything from scratch all by yourself, but you can. You want to find a legislator in your state who is passionate about animals. We're all here, for the animals, and every state has a senator or a state rep who really cares about animals. So when you identify your legislator, you work with them to craft the legislation that you hope for. And this could be based on a model, that has been successful in another state or city. Or, maybe legislation that you've seen hasn't quite gone far enough, so you can craft your own. And your legislator will, put it into the language that is appropriate to be presented. It's a good idea to get bipartisan support for your legislation, and to have a senator and a state rep, a Republican or a Democrat and a Democrat, sign on to your legislation. And the more legislators you have to sign on to your bill, the more chance that you are going to have to get this over the finish line. But the finish line is so far away. It's legislation is such a long process. One of the mistakes that people can make early on is to kind of be a hero. And it's like, you need to keep it quiet. Don't talk about it. Don't publicize it. You are a hero, but be a quiet hero, because the further you can get along in the legislative process without, tipping off your adversaries that you're doing this, the better off you'll be. You will propose legislation, your legislator it'll go out to, the appropriate committee, and there'll be a committee hearing that invites the public. And you want to be there. You want to be there with all your people. It's a good thing if you have the floor all to yourself, and you're not sharing it with your opposition. So that can be hard to do, but it's not impossible. Back when we were doing the unweaned baby bird bill, we got a long way without any input from our adversaries at the time. Okay, be aware that you are going up against an industry that is very well funded and very well organized. And when it comes to birds, your opposition is going to come from the American Federation of Aviculture. And this is, an age-old organization of aviculturists who unfortunately, they have a lot of knowledge, but we have found over the years, it's been our experience, that they will defend the worst of the worst to avoid any level of legislation ever to get passed, because the fear is that this will open up the floodgates. So they will be the first people to come, to stand up to oppose your legislation. The National Animal Interest Alliance, NAIA, this is a watchdog group, and they're positioned to keep their eyes on what's happening around the country. If somebody's proposing legislation, to help animals anywhere, they're going to be there to oppose your legislation. Their mission statement is to promote animal welfare, to strengthen human-animal bond, and safeguard the ability of people to keep animals in their lives. What they really stand for is they are people who are motivated to make sure that people can use and do with animals whatever they like. These are people who oppose prohibition of bull hooks on elephants, battery cages for hens, gestation crates for pigs. They're going to be there to oppose that, those kinds of legislations, and they're a formidable adversary. And you also have the Pet Advisory Network, and this was formerly the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Committee, and this is the pet industry. Once again, well-funded, and they do not want your legislation to pass. It steps on their toes. It cuts into their bottom line. They will come out in force. They will write letters. They will approach every legislator, and kind of, if you are working with your state rep or your senator, they will inform you about the letters that they are receiving, and this gives you an opportunity to rebut the letters that they write. And this is such an ongoing process. I've always said it's just legislation is not for the faint of heart. It's a full-time job. And the letter writing, the making sure that you educate absolutely every state rep and senator in your state so that they know what you're doing and why. And even years after we had to finally walk away from the unweaned baby bird bill in Massachusetts, I had legislators coming up to tables, that foster parents would have at various events, and they'd say, "You're the unweaned baby bird people. I would have voted for that bill." But they couldn't vote for the bill because our bill kept getting stuck in committee. And what this means is that bills are referred to specific committees for vetting, and sometimes, if your bill is going to require your state or your city to spend money, or if is there a law enforcement faction, if it's going to cause problems, if it's going to be complicated within the community, these are reasons why legislators will pull back and not support the bill. And a lot of times what you'll find is that a bill will get referred to committee for study, which is kind of the dead end for your bill. And it means that's where it's going to sit, and it'll never make it to the floor for a vote, and you'll have to start all over again. You'll attend the committee hearing. Sometimes there's opposition. Now, as you may know, there's been a bill introduced in Rhode Island to ban the sale of parrots in pet stores. And it even surprised me, and I am not responsible for this bill. This was a volunteer of foster parrots got together with a state rep who's also a friend of foster parrots and passionate about the issues, and they drafted this legislation. And who knew that it would become a firestorm? I mean, it just really, people are responding to this, and people are very passionate about it. And however, our opposition caught wind. They said they were blindsided by the bill, and they caught wind of what was going on, and they attended the committee hearing, and they seem to have won the favor of several of the committee members who are sympathetic to small businesses in Rhode Island. And it's really, it's really a sad thing because, quite honestly, I think that we all know that in any pet store situation, it's, not the sale of birds that's making people any money. It's the sale of merchandise. And a lot of times birds and animals in pet stores cost more money in regards to, feeding and veterinary care and housing than they're really worth to the retailer, but they are a draw. They draw the public in. And so that's a big motivation for having animals in pet stores. So we have a fight on our hands in Rhode Island. We have already received letters from the opposition, and I am already receiving emails from legislators saying, "Oh yeah, I am so behind this bill. Yes, I used to be a vet tech. I know what happens to parrots in captivity, and I'm behind this." So, this remains to be seen. We may end up having to compromise on this bill to accommodate small businesses because everybody's, sensitive to small business welfare when they really should be focused on avian welfare. But we'll see. And, does that detract all the value, from this measure? Maybe not. Baby steps are still steps. Maybe we don't get everything we want the first time out of the gate, but then we go back and keep trying. So that's what we're going to do in Rhode Island. We're going to push this as far as it can go. We are all a little bit surprised at how heavy this hit the media. So that's really about all I have right now.
There was a question for either of you in terms of, is it easier to get ordinance passed at the city level rather than the state? Do you have any opinion on that or experience?
Yeah, I mean, I have no experience at the state level. Probably Karen has much more experience. Yeah, I think it's going to be easier at the city level.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think to me, the smaller the city, the easier it is going to be. And sometimes you can find, I mean, you can also target cities that may have some bird lover or animal lover, and to try to find the right kind of city council members who will take up your cause, as like Karen alluded to in her presentation. So I would try to be kind of strategic about that. I don't know if I want to answer that.
Yeah, I agree, and maybe kind of, the smaller the state, the easier. I always suspected that it would be a lot easier to pass legislation in Rhode Island, which kind of operates more like a small town. It has a small town feel rather than Massachusetts, which is tough. And I'd go back and push an unweaned baby bird bill or Massachusetts. Some towns in Massachusetts and cities have successfully passed great legislation against the sale of small animals and exotics and even birds and arachnids in pet stores. And so I'm really proud of what Massachusetts is doing. But at the state level right now, I think there's a bill pending but it doesn't include birds on the state level. So, so that's a big oversight.
So frustrating. Christina, you've had your hand up. So
Hi, yes, I'm Christina. Can you guys hear me? Yes. So I'm a grad student with Tufts. I'm the bird person that from there. So I wanted to ask, is there a way we can work with pet stores to kind of negate from selling live animals to more expansive bird toys? Because given the parrot intelligence studies that are coming out, we could be selling, parrot MP3 players instead of chew toys and bells. And that way they could maybe, oh, you tried, okay. So maybe kind of expand their toys to counteract the financial loss of selling parrots, because I've been looking for a parrot MP3 player for a minute. So that's my question.
Yeah, I would actually like to answer that. as I have mentioned, pet stores are not making a lot of money off of the animals that they sell, and it's more of a draw on their finances. But the animals keep the people coming into the stores. Many years ago, Petco launched Petco Unleashed stores. And these were Petco stores that don't sell animals, that sell supplies only. My experience with the Petco Unleashed stores was that they were not as well stocked as Petco stores, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot, you know, with the retail situation. They just weren't as good. But nobody's making money off of selling birds in pet stores or small animals. So if you can work with the store, I've heard, quite a few bird breeders say that they don't make money and they'd like to not breed birds. They don't need to sell them. So.
We have a boutique bird store and they seem to be making a lot of money. I mean, they have birds, $7,000, $4,000. Like it's crazy, and that's what kind of my concern was with the amending, if they amend that bill, because these small boutique stores they're still going to be doing everything. It just doesn't make any sense. So does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, of course, Gail, thank you.
Yeah, I also want to bring up an issue because I believe almost everybody on this particular call are coming more from the captive parrot side. I'm co-director with Laura Kim of One Earth Conservation, and we had an entire summit in October on how the pet trade harms parrots, not only in captivity, but in the wild. So I understand we have to take baby steps, but I do want to raise the awareness of the people here that there is incredible harm the sale of parrots is causing, not only to parrots, but to people and the environment. So the ultimate goal is not to sell birds, any birds, as pets, period. So if you have, of course, I understand we have to take baby steps. But, like the idea of selling MP3 playing, look, I have a cockatiel. I've had him for 34 years. So when I got him, I didn't know any better. Now I do. So if I was starting over again, I would either not get a bird or I'd adopt from foster parrots. That's it. So we don't want to encourage people. Oh, look, I could learn to talk to a parrot. I should get one as a pet. So I just want to point that out, that we need to be careful in these campaigns I really think, let people know that this is a crisis that's huge, that I don't remember the exact statistics. Laura Kim or maybe Karen would know, like almost 50% of parrots in the wild are going extinct, and a large part due to the trade in parrots as pets. So I just wanted to make sure that point was made.
Yeah, I agree, Gail, that point should be made, and it should be made to the legislators as well. It's the legal trade incentivizes poaching and the decimation of wild populations. Hands down, that's it. There's no argument. So that's a great point. And just for the record, our state rep Cotter, who sponsored the bill in Rhode Island, is furious over the prospect of having a compromise on this bill.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just asking, what is the compromise that they're furious about?
The compromise is that they would exempt small privately owned pet stores and only go after the big box stores.
Oh, okay. Yikes.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. As I said, this place I went to yesterday has a whole section of baby birds, and they buy unweaned birds from these breeders, and then they wean them the rest of the way and they sell them. So that, it's not just Petco. These small places are going to be doing the exact same thing. And, what's to stop people from even going to rescues and buying birds and breeding those? So there's just going to still be little pieces of things that we're going to have to take care of. So we will have everything linked. As I said, I know a lot of people said they maybe joined late and didn't get to see things. This is being recorded. It will be on there. If you have any questions, you can put email. I'll put my email in the chat.
I'll say another thing, people, if anybody wants to throw out an idea that they're working on, or if someone's looking to collaborate with someone, like, hey, I live in Texas. Anyone else live in Texas? Like that's what this
Yeah.
is for. So whether that's now, if anybody wants to share anything via video or in the chat, or even put your email address out there to connect later, whatever works. But we're happy to facilitate stuff like that. And that was kind of the point. I know I had a couple people ask me like, hey, what are you guys working on? I'd love to join your campaign. And I let them know we are not endorsing any particular legislation out of this meeting. But we want to serve as facilitators for anyone who is looking to collaborate or get involved. So
Yeah, and that, oh, sorry, kind of what I mentioned initially in terms of, the smaller groups getting together and writing reviews, that actually does have a really big impact. If we could get all of us to go to Petco, Petland, at the small boutique store everywhere in your area and just flood the Google and Yelp, all of those with reviews, it really has an impact.
Yeah, I wanted to say that there are, some larger organizations, for instance, World Animal Protection. They're just a little legislative powerhouse out there, and they provide amazing tools for people to be able to access their legislators, know what district they're in, and who their legislators are, and with the press of a button, you can send messages to your senators and state reps, and World Animal Protection, they're initiating these pet store bans and species bans. So they are watch that space. They're a good organization to be involved with for legislation.
And I think Karen mentioned this earlier. There are some groups who seem like they want to help, but they are not necessarily out for the same thing. So do your research. If people approach you or you hear anything, look it up first. Ask us, ask around, just to make sure they are actually on the same side. Because I was strung along for almost a year by a group who pretended like we were on the same side. And it just is so frustrating and a waste of time. And so I just don't want anyone to go through that.
I also want to mention Laura Kim's been putting in the chat. She is offering a 4-week, like 1.5 hour a week free course starting this Saturday on communicating with others with compassion. And it's nonviolent communication, basically. And this might come in handy if we are doing this kind of work and we run into difficult situations with other people. So she has a link in the chat if you want to check that out.
Okay, and I don't know if people are reading in the chat. There is a database going on. If we mentioned this during the summit, actually in October, also for anyone, anywhere who you can submit proof of, evidence of animals being mistreated in any pet store, any situation, really. I mean, it's helpful all around. I don't know if any of you saw Ventura Pier in California. There's a man using his parrots. Their wings are clipped. They're out in public taking pictures with people like all day. It's just horrible. And people reported them. So even like mistreatment in other places is helpful. I mean, you just want to show all around that parrots do not deserve this. They're not supposed to be in these situations. They're not supposed to be captive. So you can see in the chat, Amanda Fox wrote, I can show that again if you need it. If you want to add your pictures, you can send it right to that. So if you have questions about that, again, you can email us everything. But if we can the more evidence we gather from everybody, it just really makes this case so strong. And Daria, thank you for raising your hand.
Hi, yes, my name is Daria Bednarchuk. I am currently a third-year law student focusing on animal law, so that's why I wanted to join to see kind of what all of this was about. But I don't know if it's been mentioned, but the power of op-eds. If you see any of this happening in your community, I feel that it is also useful to submit an opinion piece to your local, you know, news agency to discuss the problems that keeping birds in private possession is problematic, and it's not only harmful to the birds, but as was stated throughout this presentation, but to humans themselves. So just don't forget that there is the power of using your voice in your local community, because the more that we speak up, it brings attention to the problem, and small steps, change is incremental. So using your voice to speak on behalf. And I do agree with leaving reviews and such, but I have a shop in my local area and they sell birds, and it's so depressing to see them. And I don't know kind of what to do about it, but now I think I'm going to take my own advice and maybe write an op-ed about why these animals should not be caged and sold to anybody. That's not where they belong. So I just kind of wanted to speak up and hopefully share that little piece that op-eds are a huge way to also be impactful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's excellent, actually. And again, if anybody maybe isn't a strong writer or isn't comfortable, you can always let us know whatever is going on and we can help draft something. So, Liz.
Hi, yeah. Thank you for all the shout outs. This was a wonderful presentation. I'm so glad to hear retail pet sales bans being discussed, again and again at this level. I know I've been spamming the chat, so I just want to jump on video and say again, well, first, so my name is Liz Cabrera Holtz. I'm the Senior Campaigns Manager at World Animal Protection. Retail pet sales bans, not just for birds, but we have been focusing a lot on birds, is one of my main focuses. That's all I do. I'm an attorney and I focus on providing people with the support they need and also, working with legislators. I also wanted to say that my motto is to be very respectful of local groups. So we definitely would never come in and just say, like, this is how we want to run the campaign or we want you to do this. I view myself as a support. So we just would love to hear what you're doing. And then we can do things like Karen said, like set up an alert for you. So like legislators get emails automatically through one click and things like that. But we always, I never want to, I guess I'm trying to say we don't want to like take credit or take over any of these laws. We just want to support. So we're always happy to do anything that will help. Thank you again, to all the organizers.
Great. Yeah. And Liz, can you maybe put your email again at the bottom right now since you just spoke and people can see that? And then Justine, yes.
Hi, are you able to hear me now? I'm Justine Block, and I'm an environmental attorney and animal advocate. Thank you so much, Netta, and to the speakers and to all the people who have provided comments and just being here to participate in this. I think it's very inspiring that there's progress being made to ban the sale of birds in local jurisdictions and moving forward statewide in areas. I mean, it sounds very frustrating to deal with the Goliath level of opposition. I'm at a very early stage in a campaign in Los Angeles County. I've partnered and been supported by In Defense of Animals, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, and various local animal rights organizations. So we've worked as a team on an action alert for LA County to ban the sale of animals sold at expos at the LA County Fairgrounds. And that includes birds. So annually there's a pet fair in Pomona that sells birds. So we do have a state law in California that was brought up earlier. I think Amit brought it up with the ban. We currently have a ban on the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits at pet shops. That actually originated locally. That statewide ban started in the city of West Hollywood. And most recently, we've had, I'm jumping a little bit, but so I should say, in addition to the expos, there's the pet shops. We already have the pet shops banned, but the expos may be left out. So that's why we did this campaign, is that there's so many birds coming onto the market that end up on the back end at rescues, and it's very burdensome for the county to be dealing with the shelters and the crisis of the overcrowded shelters, and a lot of the birds and other animals just end up in one room at a shelter, so or dead or outside fending for themselves. Or we have flocks. We also have flocks of of birds that started out as pets. But just on the issue of well, two things is one is the question as far as organizing, what more can we do to organize among other groups, bring people together? I'd like to get people signing this action alert that's on the In Defense of Animals website, asking for the ban of the sale of the animals in LA County expos. And two, on the legislative front, we should make sure that we have this state law in California, but it's not going far enough to include other species than the dogs and cats. In pet stores, the dogs and cats are a draw. Why wouldn't rescued birds be a draw? If they're losing money on these birds, then I mean, that seems like a reasonable negotiating tactic in dealing with the pet shops. I know PETA for years has been asking for bans on specific species like the betta fish, and now they're going after a ban on the lizards. But these Petco and PetSmart are publicly traded companies. They are they're making so much money exploiting the animals, so they don't really have an interest. I mean, I think that we're really up an uphill battle. So with the third issue is just with the local, starting locally, worked in California again with West Hollywood. So now the city has been asked by the ASPCA to broaden the ban locally. It would only affect one pet shop here in West Hollywood. So their city attorney in West Hollywood is looking into broadening the ban. And then also I have this campaign initiative of the county with the county level. If anyone wants to go onto the In Defense of Animals website, there's an action alert there. But then I'm sorry to talk so long. I just will give it back to the speakers if you want to chime in. And how can we organize more and garner enough power to overcome these Goliaths that are going to fight us at every step of the way? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's very true. And I actually had a question in terms, like, kind of connected to that, because, I'm sure a lot of you here get all these petitions to sign and things like that. So I'm wondering, I don't know if you or Liz can chime in here, or anyone else who knows, everyone's sending out all of these things to sign. Are they really effective? Does it work? I feel like we're getting so spread out and there's so many things that overlap, and then your signatures are just on a few of them instead of getting a whole big list all together. Like, is there a way to do that? Or this is just the way it goes? And those, I don't know. Does anyone else have any experience with these petitions and how they move forward or how effective they are, I guess?
I mean, I have a couple of points on that. I think it's effective if it's like part of some bigger strategy of like talking to city council members. If you're just signing petition, because we get so many petitions for animal stuff all the time.
Right.
And it's hard to kind of figure out which one is which, and some animal organizations are doing it to get people on their mailing list so that they can get more donations and things like that. So it's hard to understand exactly what the motivation is, but I think if it's a targeted, like if somebody's working towards actually trying to pass legislation for a particular city, and then on top of that, there's kind of a action alert, which will send either emails, you can send emails directly to the city council members or to the mayor, whatever it is. I think then it's effective because then they feel like, hey, the constituency is behind this thing. And that's when it's effective. I think just by itself, if you're sending out all kinds of stuff to city council members, I don't think it's as effective, and they're not going to do something on their own unless there's a strategic kind of force behind this, basically.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's very true. I think it kind of goes with what Amanda just kind of posted in terms of, why don't we all get together and do one thing kind of at a time? Right now, she just said, let's get a shared document together. I don't know if Amanda, if you want to speak on this more and why you think that would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, sorry. I know I've been flooding the chat too. Thanks for speak, Amanda from Animal Rights Initiative. We protest at Petco already multiple times a month, and so do a couple other national organizations. And so if anybody was interested in doing a street outreach or community outreach event outside of a Petco, it's nationally available, like all the way from like Maine to Hawaii. So we could create targeted events and kind of, generate a lot of momentum for them to pressure them into a commitment. And at our demos in Washington State, for example, we have pretty big signs with a QR code that takes you to our action to ask them to adopt an adoption only program. And we could use that momentum in support of legislative efforts, because it also sounds like everybody here is interested in legislative efforts too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just been a really successful strategy that has worked in another campaign that I've been on in the for side of all this.
Great. Amanda, do you mind putting your contact information in the chat? So if people have any specific questions about that, they could ask you directly. Laura, you've had your hand up. Thanks for your patience.
Oh, no problem. My name is Laura Kiesel. I'm with Save Arlington Wildlife. I don't know why my camera's blurry, but I just wanted to put it out there. Last year we were one of the municipalities in Massachusetts that did include birds in our pet store ban. Actually, we included all animals, even fish. I think we're the first municipality in the state, and I think maybe the country to do that. I'm glad to just share anything that people might be interested in. The slide deck we used, letters, the hearings are all on YouTube, and I'm glad to share those clips with people so they could see how it went down. Foster Parrots was very helpful with the letter that they submitted to our select board offering the stats of their rescue, and that's what we did with the other animals as well. And for the city of Cambridge, their vice mayor, who was the main proponent of the Cambridge ban, which was the first pet store in Massachusetts, the first municipality in Massachusetts to ban a pretty comprehensive ban with everything but fish. He went on record of saying that there's been no adverse economic impacts to taking all those animals out of the store. So that was very convincing for our pets. We didn't even at the time have a store actively selling animals, but since we have a Petco, we wanted to make sure that didn't change, since there had been some whispers it might be changing in the future. But I know that that letter went a long way in convincing our select board and our town meeting to go ahead and have an all-inclusive ban, even when we had like an 11th hour challenge to strip all but mammals from the ban. So I'm just glad to talk to anyone or be a resource. I also do a lot of these types of municipal ordinances. I work here in Massachusetts on the rodenticide issue, and we were the first municipality to get the anticoagulant rodenticides banned that are killing so many birds of prey in our state.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, really quickly, I'm just hoping everyone who's kind of said they have information or things they can share, if there's a way you can send it all to one of us and we can combine it. I don't know if that's possible. That would be very helpful. And yes, Gail.
Yeah, that's what I want to speak to. I think the best way for everyone to stay in touch and connect is to join the International Alliance for the Protection of Parrots. It's free. We will put in the chat both the link to our website and to our Slack channel. And the Slack channel is probably the best way to be in touch with each other. You can even exchange emails there if you're not comfortable using Slack. But this way we can all stay connected and share resources. And if you want us to put any of the stuff you're talking about on the IAPP website, we have a resources page and we can do that. So the people you can reach out to are me, Laura Kim from One Earth, Josh, Netta, Karen. Those are the people I'm thinking of at the moment. I know there are others as well who are involved with IAPP, but look for us on Slack and we can help with getting your materials out to everybody.
Yes, thank you. And this also includes, other countries as well. I think Bertaza mentioned somebody from Singapore. So we'll try to just, because this is a global crisis, as you know, and as Gail said, please join the IAPP if you haven't, and we can all connect and get this all together. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add or questions or any other ideas.
I can add one other thing. Just if you like birds, if you care about birds, please join us on March 10th in observing International Parrot Crisis Awareness Day. On our website, on the allianceforparents.org website, there is a link in the top right to the Awareness Day page, and I'll put that directly in Slack right now. But basically, we just want to start drawing awareness to the existence of this crisis. A lot of people who love parrots, who have parrots, who post about parrots on social media, who work with parrots, don't realize that a crisis is happening. They don't understand the gravity of the situation when we say things like pets shouldn't be sold, or parrots shouldn't be pets, or parrots shouldn't be sold in stores. They don't know why. They don't know what we're talking about. And so I think we decided that one of the things that the IAPP can do is bring awareness to the parrot crisis. So as some of you know, we had a parrot crisis summit in October. Gail spoke about that earlier, and it's about how there's a crisis happening right now, not only to parrots in captivity, but also to parrots in the wild, to ecosystems, and to people who live where parrots fly free. Um, that, and again, the point of that was to draw awareness to this, and it's available, all the content for that's available on our website as well, if you'd like to look at it under the resources page. You can watch the videos and whatnot. But if you just want to be part of this movement, please, like I said, join us on the 10th. On our website, we have verbiage, we have a graphic you can use. We just ask you to share this graphic and the caption with it on your social media accounts, or you can send an e-blast or both. Again, it's gonna be March 10th. If you're on the IAPP listserv, meaning you got an email about this, then you'll get a reminder about that in the coming weeks, multiple reminders. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't yet, you can always sign up for our listserv. On our website, there's a place to sign up for action alerts, and then you'll get emails about this as well. And so please, and also invite your friends. If you have friends that work at a parrot rescue, if you have friends that work at a pet store, if you have a friend that's a veterinarian, a colleague, they agree with us and they understand the gravity of the parrot crisis. We ask for them to observe it as well. Again, it's be March 10th. We really, really want to make a big splash around the world. We want everyone, as many people as possible, to be posting the same thing because we think it'll have a really big effect with the people that so far have agreed to participate. So feel free to reach out in the chat or on Slack or email, and I'll put the email to the Parrot Alliance right now. If you have any questions, suggestions, or want to learn more.
Great. Thank you. Yes, I forgot to mention that. Thank you, Josh. On that note, before we close out, you can also, if anyone is on social media, it's really hard not to really just show how cute parrots are and how wonderful they are, but we know that makes everyone want to go out and buy one. So if you do, maybe try to add a fact about the crisis or anything to just bring them back to the fact that they are not good pets. Rescue, don't go out and buy them, things like that, because, social media is huge. We all know people automatically say, I want one. So if we can just avoid that by sharing the truth, that would be very helpful.